Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on King John, which it's an incorrect association in my brain, but I always think of Prince John from Robin Hood. So I get the do 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 do, that whole song in my head anyway when I talk about King John. But that is not necessarily this King John. Might have been some references to it at some point in time, but Robin Hood came like way after this, and Robin Hood is fictional, and King John was real. Anyway, so King John, we are still in Act 1, Scene 1, which is good because we just started the play yesterday, and a lot happened before our first monologue. We discovered that King John's claim to the throne is in question because one of his brothers, Geoffrey, had a son named Arthur, and the entire country of France is backing Arthur in this whole thing. So France wants to fight England over the crown. King John threatened back and was like, I can make it back to France before you can, and are ready to fight this war. We find out that King John's mother, Queen Eleanor, is like one of his closest advisors and or the one pulling the strings behind the scenes, that sort of a thing. And then these two guys get brought in, Robert Falconbridge and Philip the Bastard. And Robert is the legitimate son of Robert Falconbridge. He's saying that Philip is an illegitimate son of Robert Falconbridge. And while this whole thing is going on, there's a few little remarks made about how Philip kind of looks like King Richard, who was King John's brother. When Richard I died is when King John became king. So there is a little bit of talk, mostly between Eleanor and King John, about how Philip the Bastard looks a little bit like Richard I. And yesterday we had Robert Falconbridge tell us that there was a period of time when King Richard had sent the elder Robert Falconbridge away, and he's pretty sure that it's during that time that Philip was conceived, because otherwise he was born like 14 weeks early or something like that, and therefore Philip must be a bastard and cannot claim the rights to any lands or titles or anything like that left by the elder Robert Falconbridge when he died. It should all go to the younger Robert Falconbridge. And after his monologue from yesterday, King John replies, Sirrah, your brother is legitimate. Your father's wife did after wedlock bear him, and if she did play false, the fault was hers, which fault lies on the hazards of all husbands that marry wives. Tell me, how, if my brother, as you say, took pains to get this son, had of your father claimed this son for his? In sooth, good friend, your father might have kept this calf, bred from his cow, from all the world. In sooth, he might. Then, if he were my brother might not claim him, nor your father, being none of his, refuse him. This concludes, my mother's son did get your father's heir must have your father's land. So it's like an ipso facto kind of thing that he pulls out. He's like, you know what? Your mom and your dad were married when your mom gave birth to Philip the Bastard, and if she cheated, whatever, she was still married, so he's a legitimate child thereof. And then he's also like bearing the resemblance, like wouldn't Richard have claimed him? But if he didn't, then blah blah blah. So never mind. Anyway, my ruling is Philip is legitimate, therefore he's the heir, so you get your stuff. And Robert Falconbridge replies, he's like, but doesn't my father's will, wherein he left everything to me, count for anything? And meanwhile, Eleanor's sitting over here and she's like, hey, so Philip, I like the cut of your jib. You got some spunk to you. What if you gave up all of your rights and lands and came and fought with me? I'm a soldier. I'm about to go off to France and fight a war there. And Philip is like, okay. So he decides that he's going to go with Queen Eleanor off to fight in France, and he renounces his name, renounces his titles. But before he heads off to France, they're like, you know what? You look so much like Richard that right now, just like kneel down and we will knight you Sir Richard, and we'll give you the last name Plantagenet. And cool. And then they all like head off to do their thing. Robert Falconbridge is quote unquote satisfied because he gets the lands and titles of the elder Robert Falconbridge, his father, and Philip the Bastard joins Eleanor's army to go off to France. But we get to hear a little bit more from him before he leaves, and he gets to have a little chat with his mom before he leaves, and we will find out more about what that conversation is all about tomorrow as we continue with King John. Do 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 do.